Hey guys, welcome to the brand new What's News. I'm J77, the first What's News of 2013, and I might as well say right now I want to apologize if I started coughing a little bit on this video. I just recovered from a week-long battle with flu-like symptoms. Uh, Managed to catch it early, managed to get the medicine I need, managed to take the needed rest for my body to actually fight this thing. It was very, very miserable. Couldn't stop coughing for days, but that is nothing compared to a lot of other people who's going through far more worse in New York City. And that is the first story I'm going to be tackling in here because not too long ago, our governor have called a medical state of emergency because the epidemic has gotten so far out of hand in the city, and it's not just New York. It seems a lot of states has been dealing with this in their own way. A lot of casualties has been reported, both in New York and other states, mostly elderly and young children. And this is pretty much has stemmed the governor to do a a very serious emergency. I'm gonna read what it says here. Is from the Associated Press and Rutgers. It says here the New York Governor Andrew Cuomo declared a public health emergency, giving paramedics permission to administer flu vaccines to more people as officials seek to stem the worst flu outbreak, worst outbreak in states in several years. Cuomo order came a day after federal health officials said that the fast-spreading influenza had officially reached epidemic proportions in the United States following an early start. 9 of the 10 U.S. regions had evaluated flu activities last week, and 20 children across the country had died. The Center for Disease Controls and Prevention said on Friday. The the governor official said 19,128 cases of influenza has been reported this season, compared to 4,404 positives laboratory tests reported for the entire 2011 and 2012 season. We are experiencing the worst flu season since at least 2009, and influenza activity in New York State is widespread, with cases reporting in all 57 counties and all 5 boroughs in New York, Cuomo said on Saturday. As of June 5th, the state health department had reported reports of 2,884 patients hospitalized with laboratory confirmed influenza, compared with 1,169 total hospitalizations in 2011. Cuomo's executive order temporarily allows paramedics to give flu shots to patients between the age of 6 months to 18 years old. Typically, the state limits paramedics to administer vaccination only to people 18 and older. The government says the instructed state officials to marshal all needs resources and address the public health emergency and remove all barriers to ensure that all New Yorkers, children and adults alike, have access to critical need flu vaccine. Cuomo urges residents who had not gotten flu shots to do so. Nothing that influenza cases continue to rise in New York. So basically, this is the situation in New York, and it is not funny. Half my family have gotten flu-like symptoms. Some even had to stay home for a week, 2 weeks. Even I had to stay for a week, and I ended up having to fight with my doctors because they were so overwhelmed with cases that they almost turned me down. And I ended up telling them, look, I don't care how long you take. I understand I'm not rushing your patients. I'm not trying to tell you to hurry up. I can wait, but I will be seen today. There's no way I'm not going to leave here without some type of confirming how sick I was. Came there with a 102-degree fever, They saw that I was in bad shape. They saw I was coughing like a crazy. I was burning up. I had throwing up. They gave me the medicine, and I just basically stayed in bed. That's all I did. I stayed in bed, took my medicine, and just relaxed and allowed my body to relax because I can barely move around. And it took a couple of days, and I finally slowly started to get back in activity. Still coughing, but that's the kind of cough. It's a good kind of cough because all that stuff that I had in my chest is actually being coughed out, and that means that I'm slowly but surely recovering. Still got ways to go. Still am coughing a little bit, but at least I'm better. As for everybody else, man, I feel them because this is something that is serious. They have talked about this on the news for almost every single day. There's always some article, not just in New York but other states. There was reports of people dying in Indiana. There's been talks about it in Connecticut, and so this is not something that is just isolated. This is a very bad flu season, and it's definitely something that people need to be very careful of. People need to, if they feel the sign, because they even talked about it in another article that if you have signs of this, don't wait it out. Seek medical treatment immediately, because the one mistake that many people feel like, oh, it's a bad cough and that's it, and it actually has to be something much worse, and by the time they get that medical treatment, it's too late. So don't hesitate. I knew something was wrong with my body was burning up, was getting to that point. The next day I saw a doctor, and I was able to get treated pretty much the way that was to my satisfactory. But if I would have just to wait there, I wouldn't be talking right now. So I'm very happy that I'm able to not waste no time, especially when I know how dangerous it can get. But a lot of New Yorkers are battling it out, and hopefully this will pass through. It will finally end, but it is definitely, this is a wake-up call if you towards a lot of people, especially towards the parents. And I say this again, if your kid not feeling there, best to take them to the doctor. It may be just a sniffle, but it could be a lot worse. You never know, especially with cases of children dying out there. So be mindful about it. And for courtesy, if you're all sick, stay away from close contact with a lot of people. If you have no choice but to go out, even though you're not fully recovered, cover your mouth. Wash your hands. Keep those germs from not spreading already as far as they already are. All right. So with that being said, I might as well start with the other stories that's going on in the news today, and I might as well start with this one. Originally, I was going to do a separate video, but I decided to do it as part of a What's News. Because it is something that the tech world has been talking about. Families have also been talking about this, and I'll get to that as I go along with here. But it has to do with Aaron Swartz. As you all know, he had committed suicide a couple of days ago. He was very young. He was 26 years old. He was the Reddit co-founder and the internet activist. And according to reports that I have gathered here, Swartz's death was confirmed to the newspaper by his uncle, Michael Wolf, and attorney Elliot R. Peters. Swartz, co-founder of Demand Process, which plays a key role in the fight against SOPA. He was also the co-founder of Progressive Change Campaign Committee. Boing Corey Doctorow, a friend of Swartz, published his tribute early Saturday morning. The story also goes on to say that that the family members have actually blamed the government for him going over the edge to commit suicide. And this stems for them trying to convict him of a felony for hacking and stealing millions of documents from online research outlets, which one of them I believe is called JSTOR. Swartz pleaded not guilty in September 2012, but was still facing a possible prison sentence. There is no comment from the prosecutor, but there's actually two articles I have of this, and I will give you both articles. Uh, it is definitely something that in all fairness is kind of surprising to hear. I was shocked when I heard about it. A lot of people were saddened to hear about it. Um, as for the government committing being responsible for his death, that's something I'm gonna have to dig in a lot further before drawing my conclusion. But obviously, the thing about that is this, and I'll say it right now. Um, you gotta understand one thing. The one thing I find, because I think a lot of people who followed him on his Facebook and Twitter, he was known for him to be suffering from depression. It was something um, that is no news to anyone who actually had followed him, and we don't know if that led to him snapping or it was something else. Depression is something you can't just point it at just one major thing, and that's the thing I'm being very careful with when talking about this report because of his condition and what he was going through. So to say that it was just that, I have to really dig into more. But according to the CBS New York Associated Press, the family of the co-founder of Reddit has blamed prosecutors for allegedly driving him to suicide. The report also says here, weeks before he was to go to trial on federal charges that he stole millions of sorcery articles, Aaron Swartz, 26, hanged himself in the Brooklyn apartment Friday night. Swartz was arrested in Boston in 2011 and charged with stealing millions of articles from a computer archive at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Prosecutors said he broke into the computer wiring closet on campus and used a laptop for the downloads. According to federal indictments, Swartz stole the documents for JSTOR, a subscription service used by MIT that offers digitalized copies of articles for academic journals. Prosecutors said he intended to distribute the articles filed for sharing websites. And this article also says he pleaded not guilty, and his federal charge was not to begin next month. If convicted, he faces a decade in prison and a fortune of fines. The Swartz family in Chicago, of Chicago suburbs of Highland Park, said in a statement, Aaron's death is not simply a personal tragedy. It is a product of criminal justice system, raffled with intimidation and prosecution overreaching. Decisions made by the officials in Massachusetts U.S. Attorney Office and the MIT contributed to his death. Continued in the statement issued by Swartz's parents, Robert and Susan Swartz, his brother Norm and Ben, and his partner. The U.S. Attorney's Office pursued the expedition harsh array of charges carrying potentially over 30 years in prison to punish an alleged crime that had no victims. Meanwhile, unlike the JSOTR, MIT refused to stand up for Aaron and its own community most cherished principle. Swartz was pronounced dead Friday evening at his home in Brooklyn, Crown Heights neighborhood, said Ellen Brokovich, spokesman of the New York Chief Medical Examiner. He had fought to make online contact free for the public, and as a teenager helped create RSS, a family of web feed format used to gather updates from blogs, news headlines, audios, videos for users. Swartz's family was not alone in criticizing prosecutors. The prosecution made no sense. Demand Progress Executive Director David Siegel said in a statement at the time, "It's like trying to put someone in jail for allegedly checking too much books out of the library." Also criticizing the government actions in a pending prosecution. Harvard Law professor and Stauffer Center facility director Lawrence Washington called himself a friend of Swartz and wrote Saturday that we need a better sense of justice. The question this government needs to answer is why is it so necessary that Aaron Swartz be labeled as a felon? And that's pretty much it. A lot of good questions there, a lot of good statements on this article. I'm going to leave both articles up. I would recommend you look at the second article because it has more of a more details towards what happened, as well as the overall feeling towards why a lot of family members believe that that the government has caused his death. Like I said, there were also other articles that said he has suffered from depression. So I must say, keep that in mind as well. The truth is, we really don't know what led to his suicide. And the blame one, I'm not going to play the blame game on this one. Does it, am I stunned that they went out to try and prosecute him the way they did? Honestly, no, because there were also similar situations where a person from another country was about to be deported to face charges that stems to anywhere to 50 to 70 years in prison for pirating, for downloading illegal music from that country. And even though that country doesn't have that same restriction and he's not a U.S. citizen, somehow the United States was able to convince them to deport the guy to the United States to face trial. This was talked about a lot. Mike Mozart from Jeepers Media have talked about it. It was brought up in other news websites. They've actually shut down a website for having illegal downloads in their sites, Napster and everything else. So this is not a surprise that they will do this. And being the fact that you have corporations who was willing to do anything to protect their properties at any cost from illegal downloads, this is not the shock of a result that they are doing. The prosecutors feel they want to make an example, and if they have to give you a stand of years to do it, so be it. I do believe that there should be more structural law, especially if he didn't commit any crime that caused the death of another person or caused physically or mentally harm to another person. But again, that is for a debate for another time. The thing is, I want to make this clear, is that I'm not going to play conspiracy theory. You guys may agree with what the parent says, and that's fine. They did bring up some interesting points that I do definitely take into account. But also keep in mind, it has been reported that he did suffer from depression. So I want to make that be known now before things really get jumped out of control. But in any case, I will leave both links to that article. They are both very interesting articles. And I hope you guys comment on that. I'd like to know your 2 cents on these matters. Let's move right along, because we got a lot of stuff. We got a few more articles I want to touch on, and I want to touch on probably the weird files that I have recently come across. I'm gonna leave this one finally second to last, but I want to talk about this case here. I want to get this weird one out the way, because this is one of the weirdest things I have ever have to read, and I'm gonna read what it says here. There is a lawsuit happening. What else is new? But this lawsuit is very weird, and I really don't know what to make of it. It says here that a teacher, I'm going to keep that in mind, a teacher who is afraid of children. I'm going to say this again. A teacher who is afraid of children. She has a phobia for children. Is now suing the school for discrimination. I'm not kidding. I mean, this is something that I simply am scratching my head a little bit on this one. It says Maria C. Walters. It's Maria C. Walter Willard. Says she's being discriminated against because she suffers from a rare condition that makes her terrified of children. I want to say this again. She is a Ohio school teacher, and again, the reason why she's feel this way is because the district forced her to resign. She was forced to basically quit, and I might as well just read the article. All right, an Ohio teacher has slapped her school district with a lawsuit, claiming that she was discriminated against because she has a phobia for young children. Maria C. Willard taught some Spanish and French classes to high school students in Marymount School District for 35 years before she was reassigned to a middle school in 2009. Interesting. The 61-year-old alleged that the school officials dealt her reassignment to force her exit, as they were aware that she suffered from a phobia, a deep-rooted fear of young children. In the suit, she says she has suffered from the rare phobia since 1990. She provided medical official statements that detailed the degree of stress, anxiety, chest pains, high blood pressure, nausea, nightmares. Wow. She experienced when around children. It's a tough phobia. You can't really get away from children when you're outside. One of the doctors, doctors who knows about this condition, professor of physical behavior, that's what the doctor is. I can't get his name. I think it's Robert Blair. That's the best way I can do it. And he is a psychological and behavior professor at the University of Cincinnati. Told Cincinnati.com. When you're a teacher, it may not be an issue with older children. Order did not treat Walter Willard. In a lawsuit, Walter Willard said that she was asked to instruct younger children once before in 1997, when the school officials requested that she switch teaching to 4th grade through 6th grade. She declined at the time, citing her phobia, and the district allegedly did not force the request. Willard, however, said in a suit that the district became much more or less accommodating 12 years later when she spoke with her students' parents about the school move to eliminate teachers' French classes and offered them online. The teacher said she was reprimanded by the high school principal, James Rayner, after parents complained about the plan change. He allegedly told her that if she continues to discuss it with the parents, she could lose her job. She was then moved by the middle school as punishment and eventually retired March of 2011 because of her condition, and filed a lawsuit against the school district in June 2012. Willard has not immediately returned to Daily News request for comment. The federal judge recently dismissed 3 of the 6 claims, listing in a lawsuit arguing that the district had followed Willard's contract and that she would still have a job if she has not stepped down. So there you go. I'm just going to leave it at that. I will leave a link below. But this is the thing that really is interesting about this, and it can go a lot of ways. This is not an open and shut case. From the article, we got 2 things. We got one, that she had taught students, but in the teenage level, like doing the high school level, 14, 15, 16. We also know that she have gave documented proof that she had indeed informed the school of her condition, and they was aware of that condition prior. So that's another thing. We're also aware that she herself, now I say it as herself because they didn't say they forced her out. She's saying she got forced out, but to say that she got forced out, meaning that they told her to take a payout or anything else, etc. And from what I'm gathering here, and what the judge has done, because they have for some cases of the lawsuit, she stepped out on her own. With that being said, is can she prove that they did this just to get rid of her? Honestly, it's a 50-50 shot, because again, if she did everything that was required of her, informing her bosses, letting her know that, hey, look, I have a fear towards young children, I can't be around them, all the medical term is there, and they knew of this, and they and decided to use that against her, that can cause big grounds for a major lawsuit. However, she has to prove that, and that is easier said than done. Plus, again, it's all about the contract. If they on the contract and she's just stepped down on her own, then she really don't have a lawsuit to go by, and that is something I'm kind of curious as to how that's going to end, because that's something I never heard before. I never heard of a phobia towards children like that, especially when they're all over the place. So this is something that is very, very unusual, very bizarre. Obviously, there has been cases like this, because, like you said, there's a doctor who claims that this stuff has happened. But again, it really go by, did she step down on her own will versus did she got forced out, and they did many ways to do it, because it didn't say that she actually went to these classes. If she did, and they knew that, and they still forced her to go there, then there's a case. Then that's a different story. But if she willingly left, that's going to be something that the judge is going to look into more so than the actual lawsuit. So this is going to be a very interesting theory. Man, like I said, this is a weird one, because again, this is the first time I heard of it. I never heard of a teacher actually afraid of students, but I guess you never know until you actually hear it firsthand for yourself. I'll leave a link below. You guys can talk about it. You guys can comment on this. I'll leave it to you guys to do it. But that one catch me. That one caught me big time. All right, let's talk about politics a little bit. In case you guys have been following lately, the Republican-controlled states are actually pondering an idea to use income tax. They're using a lot of new tactics to literally try to raise funds, and it's needless to say that it's bringing up a lot of questions, especially cost of living into a lot of states. New York is definitely one of them. They're not immune. I'm going to read the article, but it says here, the main article says income tax could be eliminated by many Republican-controlled states. That's the first thing. Now you got to ask yourself, what does that mean, and how it's going to affect everyone from the rich all the way down to the poor. I'm gonna read this through. It says here, a single-party rule in 37 states paved the way for big changes. Some states way higher sales tax, eliminating income tax. Cities say shift would unfairly burden poor and the middle class. Hosts to overhauling federal tax system are fading in Washington, but in some states' capitals, state reform experiments, some far-reaching, as fast taking shape. Across the U.S. South and Midwest, Republicans have consolidated control of the states, legislators, and governorship, giving them the power to test long-debated tax ideas. Louisiana Republican Governor Bobby Jindal, for instance, called for Tuesday for the ending of state income tax and corporate tax, with sales tax compensating for lost revenue. A similar plan is being pushed by Republicans in North Carolina, Kansas, which cuts its income tax significantly last year. Many trim further. Many tame further. Oklahoma, which tried to cut income tax last year, is expected to try again. When it comes to getting pro-growth tax reforms done this year, the only real opportunity are at a state level, said Patrick Glinson, director of the State Affairs in America for Tax Reform, the Washington-based anti-tax lobbying group headed by small government conservative activist Grover Norquist. His group and others conservative pressured organizations such as the Americans for Prosperity have targeted state capital for tax reform campaign. Cutting income tax and shifting the overall tax burden to consumptions through higher sales tax is a long-standing goal for some tax theorists. Critics argue that approach is regressive and unfair and unfairly burdens the middle class and the poor, who spends more of their earnings on items subject to sales tax, and which is very true, and I'll talk about that in about a few minutes. Nicholas Johnson, a state tax expert with the Left Learning Center on Budget and Policy, gave a chance of a sweeping tax change taking hold on low priorities. Still, he said the effects of the state could move the tax decision in the direction harmful to the middle and low income taxpayers to make balancing the state budget harder. Sorry about that. It also goes on to say that even if this is too radical, it is to make other radical scams seem more reasonable. That's worrisome, he said. Both political movements have arrived for a test. 37 of the 50 states now have single-party control of the legislature and governmentship. 25 Republicans, 12 Democrats in the state. Unlike Capitol Hill, partisan gridlock is not a big issue, making difficult projects such as tax reform easier. In addition, new ideas look attractive at states that have suffered for years from high unemployment and tight revenue. We have no choice but to make changes, said Bob Rico, a Republican state senator in a solely Republican North Carolina, who is leading the push for that state for major tax changes. Reno and other high-minded lawmakers have a plan to do away with all state individual and corporate income tax, and plans will replace lost revenue with new business license fees and higher sales tax on goods and services, not how taxes by the state, such as legal, accounting, and spa services and food. This also goes on to say in this article that some of the people are aware that this may cause a burden towards the middle and the poor. But I actually find this very fascinating that they said that there are also programs that will help offset the cost, and that is not a very good thing to happen. North Carolina Richo acknowledged the argument that poor will be hit the hardest by higher sales tax, but he said new sales tax and services will also hit higher on income taxpayers. He said low-income people got more government assistance that could help offset the higher tax costs. Also, he added, cutting income tax would spur economic growth and key supplies aside tenants helping everyone. All right, I'm just gonna stop there. I'll leave the article there. I'll leave the whole article for you guys to read itself. But I gotta talk about this because this is the kind of stuff that has been argued over and over and over again, and they seem to not learn from their mistakes in this. I'm gonna put New York as a perfect example here. Okay, I'm gonna talk about the fact that it is a sales tax. Income tax. A lot of people always said they want to cut taxes and they want to shrink the government. And they said they always want to cut income tax, and they always want to cut the corporate taxes, and they always want to cut all the other stuff or do away with those parts. And the only people who gets hurt anytime when you hear they want to raise the income tax, the only people who always, you ever notice, get mad the most are the people who is never going to be affected by the income tax because they have the money to pay it. Especially if it's done right and done and balanced correctly. But they don't want to harm that. This idea that if you cut income tax and cut corporate tax, it's going to stimulate economic growth. Well, we have done that, especially in New York, and I have not seen no growth yet. Nor did half the other country in America. But to them, it will stimulate economic growth. Yet they are willing to raise taxes on those who they know is going to get affected the most. And just to back up my argument in this, New York City have done the same thing. They have raised a lot of the sales tax. Food is 10 times more expensive than what it was a few years ago. They tried to make a tax for taking the train, which was, by the way, ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. And just to give you a feeling of how expensive New York is, a box of cereal, a small box of cereal, can cost anywhere between $3.99 or $4. A gallon of milk can cost anywhere from $4.99 to $5, and that is if it's not on sale. Ice cream is $5. A bag of chips can run for anywhere between 99 cents to $3.99. You have wheat, which could be anywhere from $2 to $3. Rice, $2 to $5, depending on which bag you get. Meat can run anywhere from $3.99 a pound, $4.99 a pound, and $5.99 a pound, depending on what meat you're getting and how much pounds is in that meat. You add all that up, I guarantee you would not be, your shopping cart would not even be a quarter full, and you probably already spend almost well over $20 in food. Used to be a time where $200 can get you kind of far in New York. Now you're very lucky if you can fill up your cart. And if you do fill up your cart, I guarantee you spend almost $1,000. And that's not even that food probably won't even last you a week. Depending on how much you actually make, it probably won't last you a week. That's how expensive the food has gotten in New York. That's how expensive it costs to travel here. So, and the thing is, it didn't help economic growth. We still have a budget situation. We're still trying to balance the budget to this day. The idea that we should cut income tax and the corporate tax, guess what? It hurt us in this state more than helped us. We have a special tax exempt for people who are living in condos, and it's costing the city $400 million. We lost money on that. And the thing is, when they say they want to cut, again, I have to stress this, when they say they want to cut the corporate tax and the other taxes that has no serious impact on the middle or poor class, it's for the rich. That's all I gotta say. It's for the rich. And I don't get it. The sales tax the sales tax is going to hurt a lot of people in those states. It really is. If they think it's not, it is. So I don't know. They said they want huge tax reforms, and the thing about it is that really bothers me is they throw the excuse that we have that the poor and the middle class have all these resources at their fingertips, so that will not have to worry about that. I got news for you. These are the same people who was bashing people for having food stamps. Yet they're now coming out and saying, well, we got more resources. Don't worry about it. That's going to be taken care of. Meanwhile, these states are cutting resources, cutting services for the middle and poor class. But to them, oh no, they're gonna be taken care of. That's the thing I always hate. That's the thing I think people should worry about the most. When people try to say, "Don't worry, they're gonna be taken care of no matter what," because when they say that, they're just brushing it off the rug. I'm gonna say this now, guys. What they're doing is not gonna help economic growth at all. All it's gonna do is just keep filling the pockets towards the rich. Because the rich is not gonna be affected at all from the sales tax. They're not. So that's my opinion, of course. Now let's leave you guys to talk about it. I'd love to hear your guys comment on it, but to me it's a joke what they're doing. It's been a joke for a while, and I really do hope that people keep them in check about that, because that to me is worries me more than anything else. But moving on, I gotta move on to one last story, and the last story is kind of an interesting one that has talked about for a few days, and the one I feel like I wanted to talk about because this is a story that reminds me of other stories in the past. But an Indiana boy found 19 years after he went missing. Birth mother lived in the car when the grandparents abducted him. It says here in the article, it says Long Prairie, Minnesota, a 24-year-old, I believe that's the guy who wrote the story. A 24-year-old man discovered living in Minnesota under an assumed name was abducted by his parental grandparents nearly 2 decades ago when his unemployed mother was lying in the car in Indiana, authorities said Friday. The grandparents could face federal charges in the case, a Minnesota sheriff says. Richard Wade Leonard Jr. now lives in a small northern Minnesota town in Long Prairie under a name Michael Jeff Lander. The Todd County Sheriff also of Fenn said Friday. Indiana State Police announced that Leonard has been found on Thursday. Leonard had lived with his grandmother since birth, but in July 1994, after a dispute between Leonard's mother and his grandparents over his custody, the grandparents took him from their home in Willicoteville, about 50 miles southeast of South Bend, and fled. I'm not sure that the grandparents ever had legal custody, said John R. Russell, who spent several months investigating Lender's disappearance in 1994 when he was a road deputy for the LaGrange County Sheriff Department. The then 5-year-old boy mother and stepfather were unemployed and lived in the car, Russell recalled. And they have a link below. We'll have the picture of the kid before and also now. These people, the grandparents, was nice people. It was wrong of them to do it, but I can understand why, he said. But I also think that the child would be in any danger at all with them. But I didn't think the child would be in any danger at all with them. Then his stepfather, Richard Harter, did not respond to the police calls Friday. From the Associated Press. The phone number of Lyndon's mother, Lisa Hartler, could not be located. No home listed could be found of Michael Leonard. Messages left with his wife would not immediately return. The Minnesota official said that the grandparents now living in a nearby town in Brolerville, Minnesota, under assumed names Raymond Mitchell. I can't pronounce his name because it's been highlighted. Clinton and Susan K. something. Verified lender's identity. They were known for as Richard E. and Ruth A. Leonard at the time of the abduction. The woman who answered the phone number associated with the couple said that she had told the truth to the officials who needed to know and declined the request for an interview. The couple answered the door in their home, declined to identify themselves, and also refused for an interview. The grandparents were charged at the time of the abduction with misdemeanor influencing custody, which is prompted up to a felony in 1999, but the charges was dismissed in 2008 after the case went cold. The investigation reopened the case. The investigators reopened the case in September when Richard Hitler turned over a boy's Social Security card to Indiana State Police detectives that turned up a man with the same Social Security number and date of the birth living in Long Prairie, about 100 miles northeast of Minneapolis. A driver's license photo of the man appeared to resemble Leonard, police said. Indiana State Police then conducted Minnesota law enforcement agencies, which began investigating along with the FBI and the Social Security Administration. Todd County Sheriff Peter McCresson said once the investigation is complete, the case will go forward to the U.S. Attorney General for possible charges. The police spokesman, Sergeant Ron Gullutton, said it appears Linda's father was never in the picture. Lisa and Richard Hitler had married a year before the boy's abduction. In the telephone interview, the Associated Press on Thursday, Richard Hitler said his wife was jumping up and down for joy when investigators told her a few days ago that her son has been found. He said his wife is happy, is the happiest woman on earth. Hitler said that his wife was working with the attorneys and hoped to reunite with their stepson soon. Police said Leonard is married and expecting his first child. And I'll leave it at that. Guys, this is no shock at all to what I just read. And the reason why it's no shock at all, because there were cases in the 90s, cases in the 80s about family members abducting their own grandkids, their own granddaughters, nieces and nephews, for various reasons, only to find out years later. There was reports about this before, about a major trial, to the point where people was even shocked that the person who was abducted was still supporting the people who kidnapped them. It was a very, these kind of cases are common. As surprising it may sound to a lot of people who look at this video, me to say that, but they are common, and this is no different. I am a little shocked that they did not arrest the elderly couple. They obviously some reason. I don't know if the statute of limitation, it varies from state to state, and that's probably one of the reasons why they didn't go forward with that. But it is something that I was a little bit surprised that they didn't do. There is pretty much nothing much I can say. They didn't. The grandparents who abducted them didn't say anything. There was no interview. They're not getting back on an interview. And to be honest with you, I'm not shocked that they do, because they know they're in hot water. And anything they will say on an interview or to other people can be used against them. We don't know what the person who was abducted, the victim, had to say. Was he aware that this was going on? Is he happy to see his family again? Does he even hold any resentment to his grandparents? We just don't know. There's a lot of stuff that has been ironed out, but the one thing is definitely certain. When I heard this story, I wasn't shocked. It has happened before. It happens a lot of times. In New York, we had a story that a family had. It was an incident. A newborn baby was born. and the mother thought she lost her daughter in the fire. And it turns out that it was deliberately set, uh, and it was deliberately set for the person to kidnap that child. And it wasn't until years later where she actually saw her own daughter. She knew it was her daughter. She knew by resemblance, by the feeling, and she took a strand of hair, had a DNA test to confirm that, and that's how she was able to get her daughter back. So these cases, there's tons of these cases out there, uh, that pops up every now and then, especially with this. So it's definitely not surprising at all. Um, the only thing is that I am curious to see, because from what I gather from this report, it doesn't look like the attorney general or the people in charge of this case from both borders are looking to press any charges with them, especially when I read about the last one where he said he didn't think there was any immediate danger. And I kind of find that very odd, because normally when there's a child abduction, no matter what the reason is, they take that very seriously and they prosecute with no mercy. And the fact that you had the person saying that is kind of almost threw me out kind of with a loop a little bit. Said, excuse me, no matter what their motivation was, they had no right to abduct a kid like that. And it, this is something that I'm gonna kind of curious and see what will happen. I definitely would be shocked and kind of disappointed if they did let them off the hook. But again, I gotta wait and see what happens. Well, that's all there is to it, guys. I will leave links to the stories below. You guys can comment, read. You can leave comments on my inbox. I will try and bring these What's News out at least every week or every 2 weeks, depending on strength of schedule. And we'll just take it from there. I'm back. Luckily, I was supposed to do this last Monday, but I got sick. Of course, you guys know that by now. So I'm back to normal now, and hopefully I'll give other separate reports that is also related to the news entirely. But for now, this is J77 saying, hope everybody's well. Be well, be safe, and I'll talk to you soon.